All right. Hi, guys. Welcome to another Modern Women podcast. And you are with Elizma, Dan, and Nick. And you may have noticed that we've swapped sides a little bit.
Swapped sides.
I
feel a little uncomfortable. Yeah. I just realised I was saying before, something feels wrong because I'm left-handed and I just realised this doesn't feel right. But that's okay. I'm going to go with it. All right. You've got to change your routines every now and then, don't you?
That's right. Because we're experimenting with good sides and bad sides, aren't we?
Yes. I haven't found a good side yet. I'm still looking.
And even though this is a podcast, we still have to work our sides out, right?
That's right.
So,
it's important.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, when it's on the internet, it's there forever. So.
Well, great. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks, Elizma.
Yeah, I thought of it that way before. Sorry. Now I will.
Right. So what we're going to talk about today is diets. And we're probably going to focus a little bit more on weight loss diets because I'm sure a lot of women, can identify with that. I don't think there's a woman on this planet who has not ever been on some kind of a diet, and I'd say it's a good chance that 90% of our audience are currently on some kind of a diet as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but before we go into that, I thought it'd be good to kind of illustrate how many diets there are, and I have to say, girls, like when I was kind of Googling and looking into this, there are so many diets on the internet. I mean, there was no way I could even write all of them down or anything. There's tons of them. And so if we really look at diets, I mean, we can kind of like divide it into your weight loss diets, which is what we're going to be talking about today. But then you can also get therapeutic diets, which is where people have some kind of illness and maybe they're trying to get some kind of health back. And some of the diets that I think would fall into those categories are things like your anti-inflammatory diets, autoimmune diets, FODMAP, SIBO diets, all of those kinds of things. Then you also get your lifestyle diets, which is more like your vegans and vegetarians, and maybe there would be some others included there as well. You have your, what I call reactivity diets, so people who get like food reactions. So this would be like salicylate diets, oxalate diets, histamine diets, gluten-free, dairy-free diets. So people who are reacting to certain food components and they have to go on certain diets to remove those foods. But we're going to, like I said, talk a little bit about weight loss diets, and we're probably not going to mention all of the diets under that, so apologies if we leave anything out. But there's quite a few very kind of popular diets. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm sure you girls will agree, that some of them are actually very similar. There's a lot of overlap between a couple of them. So we'll kind of like point out where there may be some overlap. We'll look at the pros and cons of the specific diets, maybe potential nutritional deficiencies that can happen with certain diets. So we'll try not to bash any diets and try to be very, impartial just about looking at it. But let's look at, maybe we should start with something like the Hcg diet, because there's an Hcg diet, but there's also an ultra low fat diet. So they're kind of like very similar in that regard. I think the only difference is that the ultra low fat diet is that less than 10% of the daily calories is fats, where I'm not sure about the Hcg diet, but I don't think there's any fats allowed on the Hcg diet.
I don't think there is.
I don't think so. I think with the Hcg diet, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's phases to it. But even throughout the phases, I'm not sure that there is even a high, even if fats do come back in some way. I know in the most restrictive phase, and we'll get into that, but I think it's 500 calories a day, which we know is basically starvation. And within that, I know there's probably no fats allowed in that 500 calories.
Yeah, right.
So,
and I think that's the phase where they take the hormone, right?
That's right, Elizma,
Because HCG stands for human chorionic gonadotropin hormone.
Yes,
which is released in the beginning stages of pregnancy.
Someone genius came up with that diet.
Exactly.
That's right.
And what I was looking at actually was, obviously this glycoprotein for support around things like fertility, traditionally it has been used, and it is used as, it's meant to be used as an injection, because that, in terms of getting to the tissues and supporting in terms of circulation, it's better used. But then we have people that, as part of these diets, and we see it everywhere, there's drops and certain supplements, whether they're capsules or otherwise, of this apparent HCG. And I guess the question is how, even with the validity of that, like how much effectiveness does that have? So if we looked at the injection of the HCG glycoprotein, yes, that's going to work for potential fertility reasons, but for weight loss, is there actually any evidence behind that diet?
No, when I had a look at it, the theory was that it would be very hard to prove that it's the actual injectable hormone that's causing the weight loss, because it's a less than 500 calorie diet.
Exactly.
So it's a no-brainer. You're going to lose weight on it, right?
Yeah.
So seems to be that the consensus is that the hormone may not necessarily be responsible for the weight loss in this specific scenario.
Yeah.
Now, with things like an HCG diet and the ultra-low-fat diet, which, the ultra-low-fat diet, just to kind of, define it a little bit better, is also very limited animal protein. So it's less than 10% fat, less than 10% animal protein. So it's mainly more plant-based and things like that. So there are differences between the HCG and the ultra-low-fat diet. But what they both have in common is very low fat intake. Now, how is that going to affect our general health if we are on something like a low fat diet long term?
Not going to go well.
No, definitely not.
No. I mean, what do we need fat for? Brain function. I don't think I've had enough fat this morning. Brain is not working. Hormonal production.
Yes,
so
massive.
Yeah. So we can see a lot of imbalances come in there when people are not having enough fats.
All your steroidal hormones, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, cortisol.
Cortisol.
So what if we can't produce cortisol? Cortisol is involved in what? Inflammation, energy, all that kind of stuff.
Anti-inflammatory in the right amounts.
Yes.
Having cortisol. So I totally agree, Nick. And I think also too, when we start to think from avoiding fats in any way, but having a very low fat diet, we start to consider how is that also affecting digestion. So from looking at bile flow, gallbladder function, those sorts of things. So, we know that basically those bile salts have such an important mechanism, particularly when we are eating adequate fat. So if we're not taking in that fat and also even not adequate calories, so the gallbladder function is affected by lack of calories as well. So that's another thing from a digestive point of view. I think that lack of fats is really going to have an impact.
Absolutely, because where does bile feature? What's like the main, I guess, functions of bile? Because if we don't eat fats, we're not going to get that bile secretion. And so how does that affect digestion?
Well, we need that bile for that. Basically, bile's there to sort of support that fat emulsification, but it's also there to support the breakdown of other compounds, so the fatty acids for energy production. It's supporting that liver health overall as well, so moving things through the liver and also into that phase of excretion. So if we don't have proper bile flow, we're actually, when we start to consider bowel movements and that I call it, phase 3 detoxification, that's not functioning adequately either.
Because that's kind of like our natural laxative, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Part of detoxification.
Yeah. And you can see that actually, that's a question that we ask clients a lot, is when we ask them to look at their poo. A question I ask a lot is, do you ever see an oil slick on the water or sort of a greasiness?
Yes.
And that can indicate gallbladder insufficiency. So that's an easy way to tell. But you're not utilising your fats very well. They're just going straight through. And that's quite common in those keto style diets as well. People are just leaking fat.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then bile is also like an antimicrobial, right? So if we don't get that bile release, it's we have a high risk of that bacterial overgrowth in the upper small intestine, and then get issues such as SIBO and things like that. And having said that, this is now obviously long-term consequences. I don't know how much the HCG diet on a short-term basis would affect this. But certainly something that I've seen a lot in my practice is that a lot of women have had to have their gallbladders removed after following the HCG diet for a certain amount of time.
Definitely. Yeah.
And, once that gallbladder is gone, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah. And that's quite worrying. That could be a result of a diet.
So I guess that one I've always felt, look, you've got to be very very cautious. Apparently a lot of side effects can be experienced with the HCG diet as well, such as headaches, fatigue, even depression, and that kind of didn't surprise me because again the fats for the brain, right?
Absolutely.
And omega-3s are also anti-inflammatory, so I guess all of those kinds of things can really be affected. For me, a big one is the cell membranes. You know, we haven't really talked about it to our audience yet, but I mean, every single cell in our body is surrounded by a cell membrane, right? And those cell membranes are made from all different kinds of fats.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you don't get those fats in, you know, you can't repair your cells.
That's right.
And that includes your gut lining, you know, gut cells and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah. So we look at it like that breakdown essentially. So also comes back to the fact that are you actually losing fat as the weight, or are you starting to lose muscle mass?
Yes.
And then is that also then long term having then effects on bone density? So that's the other thing that I think we have to consider with diets such as this.
Well, especially because they, you know, with the ultra low fat diet, at least it's a very low protein diet as well, right? So being both low fat and low protein, you would expect there would be muscle, a lot of that would be muscle loss, right?
Absolutely.
And what happens when you lose muscle?
Your metabolism goes down. You look skinny.
Well, you'll be. It's what we call skinny fat, isn't it?
It is the skinny fat.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can look skinny, but you may still have a higher fat to muscle
ratio.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And you see people come out of a lot of different diets, even sometimes just calorie restricting. So not an actual focused diet in terms of maybe low fat or low protein. They're just restricting calories, and they can go through that. They can come out of that with that much lower muscle mass and looking more of that skinny fat overall. So they might think that they've lost the weight, but they're actually, you know, from a body composition perspective, are at a much worse point than probably when they started. All right, okay, so that kind of like covers that really low fat types of diets. And then, you know, really popular is low carb, high protein, or sometimes called the Atkins Diet. You know, so there's a couple of diets like that with different kinds of names. I think even the Dukan diet. Yeah, so even the Dukan diet is another one. So they're all low carb, high protein with slight little variations between them. So looking at a low carb, high protein diet, what's the pros and the cons of something like that?
Well, I mean, how often do we go on about carbohydrates and the importance of carbohydrates for women?
Yes.
So, you know, low carbohydrate diets, we start to see HbA axis dysfunction because that cortisol has been driven up, thyroid suppression as well.
And the cortisol being driven up, is that because of the blood sugar, like not enough carbs to maintain blood sugar, so they have to start breaking down protein?
That and also it's a stress on the body. So the body thinks that you're in a famine. It's going to activate that stress response as well. So there's a bit of both going on there.
Well, you're right. You know, you with a low carb diet, you run the risk of having like those low blood sugar moments sometimes, especially I guess in the beginning. I think it'll depend on how fat adapted you become. You know, how metabolically fit you become. Because after a while, I think your body gets a really good. It can kind of like draw on fat as a source of fuel. But in the beginning. It's not that uncommon for people who follow diets like this to get those blood sugar lumps because they're probably insulin resistant and you know all kinds of other metabolic issues that can create that, and then the cortisol release.
But also I think with as well, and this maybe comes back to for any diets where people have impaired gut function, digestive capacity, they don't have the enzyme stomach acid production there. Say someone goes on a high protein, low carb diet, so they're increasing their protein, but they don't then have that digestive capacity to help break down the protein. So already it's like, yes, you can follow a certain style of diet, but if you then can't break down, say, the protein, now you've increased it, you're then not getting the nutrient benefit from that protein. So you're still then not getting the energy that you're requiring, even when you're at maybe a deficit of other macronutrients as well. So that's a bit worrying.
I guess there seems to be some benefits to it, though. Like a lot of the good stuff about low carb, high protein diets have been especially loss of belly fat. So that seems to be like the thing. Carbs make you get the tire, right? So on something like a low carb diet, that seems to go. A lot of people report better cholesterol readings, better blood sugar readings. I guess it depends on how well you do it, you know.
Yeah.
So they're not all the same. I mean, you can do it well, just like you can do a vegan or vegetarian diet well, but you can also do it very poorly.
Yeah, I agree, Elizma. I think, and that's probably the question, because I think there are definitely some benefits to doing something like a high protein, lower carb diet, or at least starting to get people to reduce their carbs, increase their protein, those sorts of things. But also too, what I find with a lot of then these diets, so say Atkins, is people start on, whether it's, I don't even know if it's a phase, I'm pretty sure Atkins is, but they start on phase 1 and they get caught in that phase 1.
Yeah,
so
you're
they've
right.
heavily restricted carbs, they've heavily restricted even certain vegetables, which is what we don't want. They've also restricted even fats, and they're eating very high protein. What is meant to happen is they're meant to go through those stages of literally reintroducing foods to get them to a point where they're still eating a very healthy, higher maybe protein, slightly lower carb, but they're not where they were at the start.
Yeah.
But people get stuck in that cycle.
It's easy to get addicted, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because at first, you're right, Danielle, that first phase is where you're supposed to reduce your carb intake by less than 20 grams or no more than 20 grams. Now, that's very little carbohydrate.
Very little. Yeah.
So you run the risk of not eating enough vegetables. We're not talking about necessarily starches and grains and stuff, but just enough vegetables.
That's it. And I think people do, they even start to look at vegetables in terms of how many carbs are in even a low starch vegetable, you know, and that starts to get, I think that's where we start to look at the potential detriments from a psychological point of view as well as how we approach food and how we approach certain macronutrients, you know. So we started, I know in the diet culture, particularly with women, carbs have been demonized for a very long time. And I think we see that, you know, so many of our clients that come to see us, and you can tell that they've either gone through carbohydrate restriction at some point, or they're on a diet that heavily restricts carbs, or they've just thought, I'm going to take carbs out, but then they're eating really high amounts of other foods, and sometimes even not healthier whole foods. They're eating quite a processed diet. So,
Yeah. And I guess the scary thing about that is they initially go on these diets and they do lose weight fairly rapidly initially. And so then it becomes a fear to reintroduce those carbohydrates, because, you know, they see that when they take them out, they've lost all this weight.
Yeah.
And I see so many clients that will be on these diets, and literally they've been on them for 6, 8, 12 months, and it's like, I can't have carbs anymore. I just blow up straight away.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that you don't, you know, it's what happens is often the rapid weight loss is fluid and glycogen, right?
Yes.
So you lose that, because glycogen is kind of what that's the energy that's stored in your muscles, right? But it can make you feel or look a bit puffy.
Yes.
So when you start going on a very low carb diet, you lose your fluid, you lose your glycogen. So you start getting that where you can lift the skin off. Right?
Yeah.
And it's very easy to get addicted to
that dry, hard look.
It's that dry look, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's a bit like, you know, you identify with that, Nicole, in the body sculpting world, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they all look
gaunt. Sorry to all the fitness girls out there, but you do. You become, you know, you become very vascular, very hard, and that dry hardness. And that's what you're trying to achieve.
And if you're young, it's probably not such a bad thing, but older women who do it, I mean, you would definitely look at least 10 years older.
It definitely ages you. And look, if you're doing it for a purpose, if you're doing it because you're competing, it's only for a short time. It should only be for a short time. But then you get, you know, just the everyday woman trying it, and they're doing it long term for one, and it's not designed to be long term. And then that's when we start to see the fear come in about reintroducing those carbohydrates.
All right, well, now going from a low carb, high protein type of diet, I guess the next one would be the all protein diet, which is becoming very popular.
Carnivore.
The carnivore diet.
I've had a client with one of those on that the other day.
Yeah, same.
I can't get my head around it.
No.
So for one, I don't know how you could do that, like as in, you know, enjoyment wise. You're just eating.
Well, some of us like our steaks.
I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong, I love my protein, but not every meal, and that's all you're getting. Yeah. So
yeah, because it's 100% just protein, isn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, you will get some fats in there as well but it'll be animal fats. So saturated fats. Probably omega-3s if it's grass-fed.
Grass-fed,
you know? So obviously it seems to be, it's got a good, a big following, and a lot of people contest that it's doing wonders for their health. I guess the jury is out, and we'll have to see what the long-term effects of that would be. But meat is a pretty comprehensive. It has a comprehensive nutritional analysis, right? We get a lot of B vitamins, we get iron, we get some, like I said, omega-3s if it's good quality and things like that. But what are some of the nutrients that you guys can think of that you will not get from just eating steak, T-bones, and all of that?
Well, there's a few, Elizma. I'd say I already firstly worry about from a diversity with plant-based. So if you're not getting in those fibers, so as you cut out, so you're literally going 100% protein with something like the carnivore diet. If you're not getting those fibers, I already immediately think from a perspective of the gut health. So looking at bacterial diversity, microbiome health. So those proteins will only be feeding certain bacteria. So they're growing and proliferating, and that's great. But then you're sort of neglecting this whole other host of bacteria over here. So, but then I start to think in terms of even things like vitamin D, a lot of our minerals, so zinc, magnesium, selenium's probably another one. I think it starts to get into a lot of different nutrients that we aren't then just getting from a protein-based diet.
I think vitamin C is a big one because you can only get vitamin C from plant-based foods. And we already know that vitamin C has a very short half-life, 4 to 6 hours in the body. So it is something we supposedly have to get in on a regular basis.
Well, you're not getting the antioxidants, are you, from a piece of steak, really?
No, not really.
No, you're not.
So you're really missing out on that. So,
But also, there's just the fiber content, because isn't that also what kind of makes us poop and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, people in these carnivore diets experiencing a lot of constipation. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I have seen that in a few clients. They struggle with constipation. So that's a big one. And obviously you need that fiber to feed your microbiome to keep that healthy. So there's a lot to it.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw a spanner in the works though, because we're talking about constipation and things like this. So just it's something that I've kind of thought about, because I've had clients where they're not going every single day, having a bowel motion every single day, but they don't feel constipated, right? So it's not like they don't feel like full or anything like that. So I do have like a thing, okay, well, of course, if you're following a high fiber diet, you're going to be going a lot more regularly. If you're either calorie restricting or not eating a lot of fiber, you may not. But does that necessarily equal constipation? Because for me, constipation is like this stuff stuck there and it's just not coming out, right? But maybe because like a large part of our stools is made up of fiber, isn't it?
Well, the fiber attracts that water into the stool, basically, doesn't it? So if you don't have a stool that has fiber in there and has those fibers there to attract that water in to help with that motility and movement, well, someone may not feel the effects of that constipation, as you said, Elizma, but it's still something that I question more so from a evacuation point of view, an excretion point of view. If that fecal matter is sitting there, what is it then fermenting? If it's made up of a lot of those proteins and amino acids, is that still conducive to our health? I don't know. I agree. I see that a lot with clients. I think I'll sort of question them, and are you having a regular bowel movement? And they'll say, oh no, every second day or third day, but that's normal for me. And they describe, I don't feel constipated. So in their mind, they don't think they are, but I look at that as, well, what else is going on? Why potentially do you have these sluggish bowel movements?
And if you go back to phase 3, detoxification, which you said in the beginning, if you're not excreting every day, how much of those toxins are you reabsorbing? Your hormones, that sort of thing. And that's when we can start to see that hormonal imbalance when they're not detoxifying their excess hormones.
Yeah.
Estrogen, I think, is a big one.
It's a big one.
Like that
Yeah.
has to be kind of like excreted through the bile.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
estrogen dominance would be a big one if you're if that whole detoxification process is not happening.
Absolutely. And that's where I guess you start to test in like stool analysis, things like the beta-glucuronidase as well. And if
Yeah.
that's high, that's tying into almost like that estrogen recycling as well. So
Absolutely. And then, we also need, I think this is one of the big things we kind of like discussed it before we got on, is that, we're looking at weight loss diets, and we probably have to definitely debunk the myth about calories at some point during this conversation.
Yes.
But one of the other things that we wanted to kind of also emphasize is the weight loss or health benefits from diets don't always just come from the food itself. It can sometimes be because of the secondary gut effects that they're having, correct? Because especially those fibers, they produce short-chain fatty acids, your polyphenols in your vegetables, they get our ratios of gut bacteria right. And those short-chain fatty acids, especially the butyrate and the acetate, often depending on what their ratio is like, will determine whether you're more likely to develop metabolic syndrome, become obese, or find it very easy to lose weight, right? So kind of what you feed your gut bacteria will produce products that will also either hinder or benefit your weight loss.
absolutely. Yeah.
So it's not always just about the diet.
No, and that's where also too with weight loss, is there that inverse relationship between weight loss and health? Not all the time. Yes, sometimes going down that weight loss path, people do need to, in terms of whether there is metabolic syndromes, metabolic dysfunction, whatever that might be. But we can't just say that if you're losing weight following whatever diet, then you equal health, basically.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I think we need to debunk a little bit as well.
Yeah,
So,
and I think like any of the, a lot of the diets you're talking about are what I would consider extreme
they
diets.
are, absolutely.
Meaning that they may actually have a benefit for a certain period of time, but it's about not getting stuck into these diets. So it's not like we're saying these diets are bad. We're just saying, look, as anything, when you start to exclude a whole bunch of food groups, it should possibly be considered on a temporary basis.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, just
absolutely.
to reset the body.
Yeah. Agreed.
And that's what I've always said with diets is it sustainable long term?
Yes.
And that's where
Great
I sort of rate it. If you can maintain this for the rest of your life, then and be healthy, then yeah. But if you can't, then we have to look at that a little bit deeper.
Absolutely.
That's,
All right, so going from a full-on carnivore diet, I guess the next one I would consider to look at would be something like a ketogenic diet, which is, and some circles believe a high-protein, high-fat diet, low-carb diet, but for me, that's not really the accurate description of a keto diet. A keto diet is more like a moderate protein, high-fat, low-carb diet.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's what it's traditionally been, hasn't it? I think the higher protein is something that's maybe come in. Is that something that maybe falls into, if we look, and we will eventually get there, paleo? So is that more in that realm? But I think traditionally the keto is that high fat, moderate protein, very low carb. So
that's right. Yeah, because I guess if you consume too much protein on the diet, again, a lot of that can just then be broken down into glucose. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the premises of how that works. But a lot of these diets, including the ketogenic diet, a lot of the studies show that it does reduce the gut microbiome diversity. I guess that's one of the things that's very important to keep in mind, especially following something long term. And I think, Nicole, you said something about sometimes you lose some of these species forever.
Yeah, so you can starve a lot of these species, and some of them will come back, but some of them, if they die off, you can't get them back. So you are losing diversity. So it has quite an impact. And then again, it comes back to what your microbiome is doing as to how efficiently you can lose weight. So it comes back to initially you might lose a lot of weight. You're also doing damage to your microbiome, and then in the long run, it could actually turn around and have the opposite effect.
But can't I just take a probiotic and put all of those,
Oh, of course.
lost
Do
microbes
that.
back in?
Yeah, for sure. Fixes everything.
Yeah, that's the way to balance it all out, isn't it?
That's why if you give someone a probiotic, all their problems are over.
Yeah.
Because that probiotics don't stick around, do they?
No.
They don't become a permanent part of
Nope.
our gut flora. So once we do lose those species, they are pretty much gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
Right. So, and one of the other things, I guess, that people who do ketogenic diets, have to kind of also be, I guess, mindful of is, and I guess this is why there's there's probably hundreds of different forms of ketogenic diets on the internet, is the whole high fat thing may also not be as simple as saying, just eat a whole bunch of fat.
Yeah.
Because what happens if we eat a whole bunch of fat? Will our body use that fat for fuel, or will it use our own body fat for fuel, right?
Yeah.
So
That's a great question, Elizma. And I think this is where I like to see this come up in testing. I know you're so on top of this with organic acid testing, is when you look into those fatty acid oxidation markers. Have you seen, Elizma, with people that are maybe on a ketogenic diet at the time, and you look at those markers, have you started to see a relationship there? Have you seen dysfunction there? So maybe where someone isn't fat adapted?
I have actually seen very, very interesting variations in terms of ketogenic diets, but also what I call caloric restriction or starvation. So depending on, again, how adapted they are, the first markers that can often go up is those the ketone markers, which is the BHBA and the acetoacetate.
Acetoacetate,
so this would be a sign that the body is going into starvation and starting to break down fats, amino acids, and things like that. And then if they are not well adapted to use those fatty acids for fuel, then you'll see some of the other ketone markers, not really strictly keto, more like the other fatty acid markers show up as well, which is indications of carnitine deficiency. So not being used appropriately for fuel and things like that.
So, and that's I've seen that correlate sometimes with patients. They, when we're going through their symptoms, but a very simple one is that they describe they're on a keto diet and they're not feeling good on it. They're not getting the energy that they think they should be getting. They're not feeling the energy that maybe they did 6 months ago when they first started on that keto diet. And then, obviously through something like functional testing, we can maybe start to piece those clues together. But I've definitely seen that where those ketone markers are showing up high, then the rest of those fatty acid markers are showing up high, and we say, okay, well, you're not utilizing those fats, so of course you're not getting the effects.
You're just peeing it out.
Exactly. You're literally just urinating that out, and you're not utilizing that as the fuel, as you said, Elizma. So I find that really interesting.
All right, so, with things like ketogenic diets, you can get that acidosis, which can sometimes be metabolic acidosis, which is not harmful in any way. It just makes you very acidic. But then you can also get a condition called diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a much more serious condition. Not that common, though. I think it gets overplayed a little bit. It's usually only happens in someone who's got very poorly controlled diabetes. But that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about metabolic acidosis. So considering that these ketones create this metabolic acidosis, what do you think are some of the nutrients that would be, I guess, in higher demand following a diet like this?
I think B vitamins, firstly, I would say, Elizma. So to help with, when we start to look at that energy production, detoxification, methylation, I think B vitamins are one of the first things. We know that even sometimes when looking at beta oxidation in the body, so fatty acid conversion, B vitamins are critical for that.
Riboflavin especially, right? And then the interesting thing is that with riboflavin, we kind of mentioned it, I think, in the thyroid podcast, is that riboflavin has to be converted into FAD by thyroxine, thyroid hormones. And it's that FAD form that helps that fatty acids being broken down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
then what about minerals? So for acidosis. Well, that's something I've seen, right? So some of my clients who followed ketogenic diets, they get very deficient in magnesium and potassium. So often, you add back some of those electrolytes, they feel a whole lot better. So that could be some of the nutritional areas that would need to be looked at if someone is following a ketogenic diet, especially long term.
Absolutely.
Now, there was a golden oldie diet that I've completely forgotten about called the Zone Diet.
Yes.
Who can remember the Zone Diet? We do.
If you're in your
remember.
40s, you remember the Zone Diet.
That's right.
Probably.
What diet, guys?
Yeah. And Jennifer Aniston made that famous, was it?
That's right, she did.
The Zone Diet.
Who's Jennifer Aniston?
Yeah.
I know.
Stop
I'm
it.
not that.
Get out of here.
We're going to make you sit down and watch the movies with us. But yeah, the Zone Diet, like I completely forgot about that, but that was super, popular in its heyday. When was it, the 90s?
Yeah, I think it was the 90s,
Yeah,
the height
right.
of Friends time.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, the Zone Diet is like a low glycemic diet, right? So I had to go, I've completely forgotten what the Zone Diet was about, but it's pretty much 35 to 45% of your calories is from carbs, 30% from protein, 30% from fat. So kind of a more balanced diet than what we've seen from the other ones thus far.
Definitely, yeah.
And they're kind of like really focusing on low GI carbohydrates as well. So what does low GI mean? Well, we know that, looking at glycemic index, it's about how fast your body will take carbs and break it down into sugar, right?
That's it.
That's exactly it.
That's it.
Yeah.
So sugar, what's the glycemic index of pure sugar?
100.
That's right.
That was a trick question.
It's like, that's too easy.
I was
That
like,
can't be right.
99.9.
Yeah, that's like, what's 100%? What's 1%
Yeah.
of 100? 1%.
Oh, God.
And then everything else kind of like is measured against sugar,
Against
right?
that, yeah.
Because sugar, when you have sugar, it absorbs straight away into your system. No digestion, no nothing.
Yeah.
So the longer something takes to digest, the lower glycemic index it is, right?
Yeah.
So what kind of foods would be low glycemic index foods?
High fiber foods.
High fiber.
Yeah,
Exactly.
high fiber foods. I guess whole grains.
Whole grains is one
Yeah.
of them. Yeah. Certain, and then I think fruits. There's like a spectrum, isn't there? So in
Well,
terms
high
of
fiber fruits,
yes,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
So maybe not grapes.
No.
But
Things like pears,
Yes.
Yeah.
apples.
Yeah.
apples.
Yeah.
Especially, green apples.
Yes.
Green apples, yeah.
Yep.
And then also I think I was thinking of even like resistant starches.
Yes.
Right. So I know that rice, for instance, is classified as not a low glycemic index, right? But if we change it into a resistant starch, would that make it low glycemic index?
It
Yes,
definitely,
it does.
it does. And we know then that the resistant starch, sidetrack a little bit from the glycemic index, is going to feed that short-chain fatty acids and things specifically like butyrate. So we can basically take a certain carbohydrate, something like rice, and turn it into a resistant starch, lower that glycemic index, and also then support the gut health while we're at it. Yeah.
So I have to say that this was one diet that I looked at and I was like, this is actually
It's actually
not
pretty
too
good.
bad.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything bad I could find about or to say about it.
Yeah.
Obviously works for weight loss. Jennifer Aniston.
Well, she looks great, so
she
Yeah.
looks great. So
and she's still alive,
Must
so
be
it's obviously not detrimental to her health.
that's
Was
right.
my question with that, Elizma, was there like calories? So was it based then on calories, or it was more so the breakdown?
I don't
more
think
the
it was
ratios.
calories, yeah.
It wasn't about
Yeah.
calories. It was
Interesting.
ratios. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it kind of matches. I remember, this would be going back a couple of years, but I read a research paper that was done, I think, by German scientists, and they were looking more at genetic expression, like what would be the perfect diet for genetic expression, meaning switching off all those diseased genes and switching on all the longevity genes.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much a third protein, a third carbs, and a third fats.
Interesting.
So that's just besides the point. It wasn't really for weight loss purposes, but I thought, interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, we haven't really talked about the paleo diet.
The paleo diet.
The
I
paleo
think
diet.
that's
Yeah.
had so many adaptations, hasn't it?
Isn't it the same as the anti-inflammatory and the autoimmune?
Yes. Well, there is a paleo autoimmune diet.
Yeah,
okay.
specifically.
the AIP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
So is there something that makes it different, or is it just adding that autoimmune thing next to it to sell?
I think
more
probably
books?
more than that.
From a
more
marketing
likely.
point of view.
Yeah.
I don't think I've briefly had a look at the AIP and I haven't gone into it. I know you can do like AIP training and things
Oh, look,
like
there'll
that.
probably be
Yeah.
like for the diet purists out there. There's going to be like subtle differences.
Absolutely.
Um, But I guess, I always like to look for things from a generalistic point of view. They're probably very similar.
Yeah. Because when you look at a paleo diet, generally it's taking out a lot of those inflammatory foods. So,
exactly.
that's going to be helping with autoimmune anyway.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Sugar, processed foods.
Dairy.
Some grains.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, again, probably not a too bad diet. Now, some people would say, well, dairy is not allowed on this diet, which means that you're going to have issues with calcium. What's our thoughts on that?
I love this question.
Yeah.
Yes, because we definitely need dairy for calcium, don't we? Because that's been around forever.
Of course.
We definitely don't.
Yeah.
I think we've proved that.
We have definitely proved that. Yeah.
Well, cow's milk is very important, Nicole, because
the dairy industry relies on it.
women have to drink cow's milk in order to breastfeed their babies.
Right. Okay.
Don't laugh. This is actually true.
I'm trying not to.
I read, this is seriously there are actually people out
so
there.
why
who
do
believe that.
women not have udders then if they're drinking cow's milk?
Great question.
To produce
No,
milk.
I know. I remember one lady, bless her soul, but she was like, I need to drink dairy in order to provide milk for my baby.
Wow.
And I just thought, wow, okay. That's a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
There's some misinformation.
A lot of
I'd
misinformation.
Definitely one of them. So the calcium is another one of them, right?
Yes.
Because especially, I guess, cow's milk being pasteurized, it does make, there's a thought out there that it makes a lot of these minerals less bioavailable and things like that. So where can we get calcium from if we don't get it from dairy?
Well, all our,
plant-based.
So sesame seeds, almonds, chia seeds, leafy greens.
Yeah.
Broccoli, I think,
broccoli. Yeah. I even think if you're sort of having more of a maybe vegan plant-based diet, but tofu, so if you can get organic tofu, it's a little bit higher in calcium. But I go to the nuts and seeds and the leafy greens.
Yes.
It's kind of like that's my go-to. If you're hitting that for calcium,
you
don't need to be having dairy.
No.
And also, if we think about it the other way, sometimes it's not about getting more calcium in. Sometimes it's about preventing the loss of calcium,
Yes.
right? Because phosphorus is something that will pull a lot of calcium out of the bones, right?
Exactly.
And where do we get phosphorus from?
Well, like these quizzes, Elizma.
So, all right, no, I'll answer my own questions there.
It's Friday afternoon, it's Friday morning, Elizma. It's not even afternoon. Gee.
Well, the most common thing is fizzy drinks, right? Soda drinks.
Yes.
That's right. Phosphorus. That's right.
That's what I was going to say.
But also non-organically grown grains. Because think about the farming practices, right? We spray phosphate fertilizers a lot. We use that in commercial agriculture. So the mineral composition in commercially grown vegetables and grains may not be that great, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sometimes just cutting, because paleo cuts out a lot of those things. It will potentially prevent the loss of calcium, so have kind of a calcium sparing effect. So maybe the calcium is not really so much of an issue.
You know, I haven't had dairy for 25 years, and I don't think you guys have dairy either, and I don't think any of us are walking around with broken bones.
Falling apart yet.
No.
You know, so it comes into play. Everything comes into play when you're looking after your bones. Obviously, getting enough calcium through the right sources, weight-bearing exercise as well, getting enough sunlight for your vitamin D. So it's not just a matter of doctors prescribing calcium, and not even great forms of calcium to women who have osteoporosis
like the
and
carbonate forms.
it's not. It's not going to do anything. It's the whole lifestyle has to come into play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay, so I guess the next one, and I hope we're not going to get a lot of hate mail on this one, is the vegan diet. Or vegan vegetarian diets, things like that, right?
Yeah.
So, but this would be, I guess, more a lifestyle diet.
Yeah.
But there's probably some women who do it for weight loss purposes as well.
A lot. I actually come across a lot of women who do it for purely weight loss. Yeah.
And the differentiation between vegetarian and vegan would be vegan is completely no animal protein.
No animal proteins at all.
So vegetarians, what are they willing to still eat?
Eggs is usually one.
Dairy.
Some of them do still have some dairy. Sometimes people will fall into that sort of pescatarian, might have a little bit of fish.
Vegetarian, as I like to
Vegetarian.
call it. I was a vegetarian for a while.
Yes, I was one of those as well, Nick. So, yeah. I love that name.
I love it too. I wanted to trademark it, but I don't know.
You should look at it.
I should actually. That could be a new thing.
Definitely. I know there's the Hcg Diet.
Vegan.
Which?
The Hcg.
Is that the paleo vegan?
Paleo vegan.
Which is quite... Yeah, I couldn't get my head around that.
Dr. Mark Hyman. I think he trademarked it.
Did he?
So-
See? Oh,
Yeah.
it's too late.
You need to
Yeah,
trademark
that's
it.
the story of my life. I think
God.
if
Did you just put it on there because now someone else is going to trademark it?
nobody tell anybody about that.
First trademark it and then
Then
mention
say
it.
it.
here.
That's my problem.
That's how you make money.
God.
Right, so, I guess we also have to kind of, point out that we all have different genes. We all have different genetic expressions. For some people, they'll feel great on something like a keto diet. Other people will feel terrible.
Exactly.
I guess veganism and vegetarianism is a little bit the same. I think some people may have genetics where this is the kind of diets that work really, really well for them.
Yeah.
And some people may not. I mean, I had one client who was a vegan for many, many years. And every time I tested her blood, her iron and B12 was fine. And I was pleasantly surprised. I couldn't understand it, but maybe she has some kind of a genetic makeup where it just works for her, right?
Yeah.
But on that note still, what are some of the more common potential deficiencies that could be experienced when you follow something like a vegan diet?
B12.
B12 is one of the biggest one. Iron, omega-3 deficiencies, amino acids, sulfur amino acids, taurine is a big one. So I think obviously amino acids. So if someone they've been on a vegan diet for a long time and they're not getting those amino acids through supplementation, we already know they're deficient regardless because they're not getting, like taurine we have to get from, if you're not getting that from plants, which we're not, you've got to supplement in some way. So, and that's so tied up in as well, gut health, detoxification, those other sulfur amino acids into insulin regulation as well. So these are all critical building blocks that vegans can, over time, become quite deficient in. So
because it's not going to happen in the first 3 months, right?
No.
You do it for the first 3 months, you feel great.
You
feel detoxed and
that's
clean
it.
and all
exactly.
of that.
And when are we seeing the clients coming in with the health issues? 5 years plus after starting their vegan diets, and that's when you can start to see a lot of things starting to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So the plus side of it, though, is usually if someone's doing it on a healthy basis and they're not just eating pastas and stuff like that, usually they would get a much higher fiber intake, much higher vegetable intake, much higher polyphenol intake.
Definitely.
So it's definitely not one of the unhealthiest diets out there. It can actually be very healthy if you're just very aware of those potential deficiencies and make sure you just don't suffer from it.
Learn how to eat well on a vegan, a plant-based diet.
Exactly,
and you can
Nick.
do okay. But you see so many people and they're not understanding, complete proteins, incomplete proteins, and what they actually have to include in their diet. So, if you do your research, you can maintain a fairly quite a healthy.
You can.
You can, definitely. I think if there was one diet that you could work within in some way, not even vegan, but being more plant-based regardless, we absolutely all can. I think that's the goal.
We all need to eat more
We
plants.
all need to be more plant-based regardless. But if you're someone that is a vegan and it's not working for you, you need to look into the reasons why and then how you can go about making now changes to your diet. And if that's something that you're not then willing to maybe make some changes, or you're maybe not willing to accept that there might be something you need to supplement long-term now, you need to then look at the diversity of your diet and
it's funny because I was a vegan for about 4 or 5 years years ago after I'd finished competing.
I went through a vegan phase.
And it did not go well for me at all, and obviously I knew how to eat well, but it just, as you said, Elizma, genetically for me it did not work at all. I just I couldn't hold muscle. I was pale and tired all the time. And funnily enough, my brother had also done vegan and he had the same issue. He couldn't do it as either. But I have friends who, she's been a vegan her whole life. Her mother was a vegan. So I don't know, is that sort of genetic thing, as you say, come into play a little bit there?
I think so.
Maybe even like the gut microbiome, because we pass it on to our kids. So if there's a family who do very well on vegan diets, could be a genetic component, could also be a gut microbiome component maybe. So that's the thing, we don't know. so we all do better on different diets. So
Yeah,
that's why it's
absolutely.
never going to be one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
So if we did want to follow these diets, a lot of them we'd have to kind of supplement a little bit, wouldn't we? So if we're doing theoretically something like an HCG diet or an ultra low fat diet, supplementing with omega-3s would be a good idea, even though it'll go completely against the diet.
Yeah.
But that'll be a deficiency that would need to be looked at, right?
Absolutely.
So something like a vegan, there we look more at iron, taurine, and vitamin B12 as the big ones. And then, with something like a carnivore diet, polyphenols.
Absolutely.
So you have to take a modbiotic or something like that to kind of get some of those polyphenols in.
Yeah.
Now, I have to mention this diet. I thought this was so cool. In my search, I have discovered a new diet.
Oh.
And it's called the Zombie Apocalypse Diet.
Oh, I like the sound of this.
Interesting.
No. So you've heard it here first. The
Have you
zombie-
trademarked this one?
trademark it
Elizma?
This is actually, it was an environmental reporter who invented this thing called the Zombie Apocalypse Diet. So his, I guess, motivation was more for environmental reasons, being more self-sustainable and things like that. So he wanted to figure out, if we have a zombie apocalypse and we have to, there's no shops, there's no fridge, there's no food in the cupboard, how do we survive? And how do we lose weight on it, right?
Yeah.
So his whole philosophy was on, you have to grow, catch, or forage everything. So this means you can go catch fish, grow your own vegetables.
Okay.
He was eating insects, I think, as
I was
well.
gonna say crickets.
Yeah, crickets.
Yeah.
He was doing crickets and all kinds of stuff. He lost a lot of weight in a short period of time. But for him, it was probably more of an environmental kind of expert. But I thought, I like that zombie apocalypse.
He probably had
diet.
to chase his food. That's why he lost weight.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
Yes,
that
it's
whole
a-
hunter-gatherer thing.
Well,
It's
I mean,
like-
is that not
yeah.
sort of a hunter-gatherer style
Yeah.
type?
I think
Yeah,
it
I
is.
think they didn't
Possibly.
eat crickets. I think they just
Yeah.
went for the,
Yeah.
That's
the
true.
animals and things
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
no, I thought that was really interesting.
Well,
I was
I-
fascinated by
There you
it.
go.
I hope the person that I'm living with doesn't listen to this. I'll tell them not to listen to it. But he's a prepper. And he's a next level prepper, and he's
Oh,
already got it
really?
sorted out how he's going to catch the fish. He's going to, he's going to.
You're
You're
lucky. You're sorted.
sorted.
I'm never leaving that place
No.
because I will be fine when the apocalypse comes.
I'm
Yeah,
coming.
well, I
Yeah.
thought the apocalypse was already here.
Well,
in the
Well,
last
he got
couple of-
excited because he's like, finally, all these years of my preparation.
I'm validated.
And he said, now who's laughing, right?
So he's not stressed one bit. He's
No,
like, this
he's
is
got
fine.
we've got it all planned out.
So you already
It's
had
all
the
planned.
toilet paper.
He had the toilet paper. We had 2 boxes of big 50-pack boxes. We're still going through them, even though the toilet paper's
I know.
back.
I am
Oh
embarrassed
my
to say
God.
that I fell for that whole
Oh,
toilet
did you?
paper. We eventually,
my
when the
God.
supermarkets ran out, we
Yeah.
went to buy toilet paper at Bunnings. You know the commercial
yes.
stuff.
Yeah, but you know what it
Do you know how
was?
expensive it is?
That is expensive.
That
yeah.
It's like $100
Holy
for
wow.
like a carton.
Okay, well, you got
you got
You really
gypped.
got done.
You got
It is-
really
It's
gypped.
supposed to last a lot longer than a normal toilet paper. But all I know is we're sorted for
the
toilet
next
paper for the
3 years.
next 3 years.
Oh my God.
You're one of the ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no,
Yeah.
it's because everyone else
I
was
know,
one of the
and
ones.
that's the problem.
It forced
Yeah.
me to become one of them.
Everyone's like, I'm not going to get any toilet paper. I have to grab
That's
it.
right.
And that's what I
And
think
it
there was
just
a domino
feeds the whole
effect.
thing.
The fear.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, that crisis is over. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not
There
gonna-
could still be another apocalypse though. So
Oh, there'll be another apocalypse. But
Yeah.
maybe not to do with toilet paper.
Probably not. But that was a very cool diet. I really like that.
interesting.
I like that too.
Yeah.
I guess something that would be good to kind of touch on a little bit is, there's also other methods that a lot of women use for weight loss as well.
Yeah.
I almost wanted to call it the drug diet, but thought that's not a good plug. Or we don't want to kind of perpetuate a feeling with women that they need to, or even that they want to use drugs in terms of weight loss or anything like that. But it is becoming a bit of a problem in today's society. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can kind of differentiate between illegal drugs and
Yes.
legal drugs here,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So shall we first do the illegal ones?
Yeah, let's do them.
jump
More fun
into
to
it.
talk
Ones.
about.
Yeah.
And we're absolutely not endorsing
Not
this.
at all.
No, we
No,
are
at
not
all.
endorsing this at
This
all.
is more a warning of
It is.
how this could not be a good idea. What's some of the things we're starting to see in certain circles that women are doing in order to lose more weight?
Is in what type
Do you
of
wanna-
drugs?
yeah.
Or
Yeah. I guess what type of drugs are women turning to in order to, I don't know, suppress their appetite, speed up their metabolism, whatever it is that they wanting to do.
I think cocaine's quite prevalent. It's very, very
Yeah.
widely used.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. And it went a bit out of fashion, and it seems
Yeah.
to be.
Because it was the rich person's drug, wasn't it? Is that why it went out of fashion? It's
Yeah.
quite expensive.
Yeah. But I don't think, is it? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think it is still expensive though.
Right, okay.
Well, I mean, if you compare it to say ice, which is a terrible drug,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
really prevalent and it's very cheap
Yeah.
compared to cocaine. I think that's
Okay.
why we're getting so many people hooked on ice, because it is very cheap.
Yeah.
But yes, that's had some awful effects with people.
Yeah, and the cocaine one, it's very prevalent in the fitness industry,
Very.
right? Beauty industry, fitness industry.
Drugs, sorry, fitness people, but drugs in general are very prevalent in the fitness industry.
It's a shame for those who do things naturally, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of athletes who do it naturally as well.
Yeah.
And so for them, having to work so hard at the way they look and the way they eat, to have people not having to put that much effort in, but look great on, photos and things like that. I mean, that would be very disheartening.
Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, I think cocaine's quite widely used, just as a general. I mean, I guess it's got a few different reasons why they use it. Obviously for party purposes, and it is good as an appetite suppressant as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons why they want to use it, or why women use it, right? It's just so that they don't get hungry.
Yeah.
And does it also then, I don't know, take away from even then drinking alcohol? Because at the end of the day, alcohol is calories, isn't it?
Well, I mean, there's those parties that they're alcohol-free parties, but they've got a lot of drugs. So they don't do. They got buckets of water, well, not buckets, but there's a lot of water going on, and they go, they're alcohol-free. But no, there's mega party drugs going on.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah,
It's like, substituting
one for the other.
One for the other.
Yeah.
And then I think there's a again, this is not a particular diet, but there's a worrying trend that I've noticed, especially amongst young girls, where they want to go out to clubs and they want to drink, but they don't want to put on weight, so they don't eat at all.
Yes.
And then they'll go out and then they can drink more alcohol because they haven't eaten anything. And of course, then the risk is you get super drunk very quick.
Very quickly.
Hopefully your girlfriends will look after you when you're out, but it's very risky to do stuff like that as well, and very unhealthy too.
Extremely. I think that's one of the most common ones. I think, Elizma, it's almost just that not eating and then sort of making up for those calories with alcohol. And if that becomes also too, in your younger partying years, that's not just a once-off thing. That can be week after week.
Yeah.
So that becomes a cyclical thing, doesn't it? So the damage that can have on the body long term is just not something that's thought of realistically.
And I think statistically, women are the biggest binge drinkers.
Yeah.
So a bigger proportion of women than men are binge drinkers. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think during this time, the statistics have shown that we've all become alcoholics.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not all of us.
between homeschooling and having the husband at home and being stuck in home,
What's the easiest go-to? Alcohol.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Junk food and alcohol, I've noticed a lot, of clients saying, since I've been great until COVID and now I'm alcohol, like comfort food, anything to get me
any
through.
given night.
That's right.
It just everything goes out the window, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then, of course, alcohol will zap a lot of nutrients like zinc and vitamin B12 and all kinds of nutrients that we need for thyroid function.
Exactly.
And long-term weight loss and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So some of the, despite that a lot of people are using illegal drugs for weight loss purposes, we have to point out it's a little bit like smoking. When you stop, you're going to get a rebound effect, right?
Exactly.
And at some point, you're going to have to stop. And then the likelihood is you're going to put on a lot more weight. And that's not even talking about the mental health effects, like the depression and all those other things that will hit, during the use of these drugs or stopping using these drugs, which will then, again, perpetuate that whole eating kind of behavior. So definitely not a long-term solution, and probably a detriment in terms of moving forward in your life.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, Elizma. And I think that we can maybe bring in now looking at potential weight loss pills and drugs that aren't recreational and they are legal. I say that in that way because they can be prescribed from your doctor. I think one of the most common ones I've definitely seen with clients and case histories and things like that is Duramine. So some of our female listeners listening to this might either know of it or have had an experience with it because it's so commonly prescribed. And so basically it's the active ingredient is phentermine, and so it is similar to amphetamines.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's already an issue. The fact that something that is very closely similar to an amphetamine can be so easily prescribed and still is. So
it's very prevalent.
Very, very
Still.
prevalent. Yeah.
So what would be the criteria to get this prescription?
What's the criteria, Dan? First, let's go through that.
Well, realistically, the criteria should be that someone is actually falling into an obese category. And I think even the BMI 30 and upwards, I think, is around, and I don't like to use BMI, but if you're going to a doctor, that's what they should be checking.
Yes.
And also they should actually be doing numerous tests to then test from looking at your bloods, looking at lipid markers, cholesterol, those sorts of things, any sort of cardiovascular risk before even putting you on this drug. So there's actually a lot of pre-steps that should be taken before someone should get the tick of approval to start taking Duramine. Duramine should also only be taken, and this actually says it on the packet, for 3 months at a time.
Wow.
That is it.
Yeah.
Like absolute, that's it.
Have we ever met a woman who would only take a weight loss drug for 3 months at a time?
Oh, in an alternate universe, maybe.
And if it works, you are not
You're not stopping
after
it,
3
are you?
months, right?
Yeah, no.
And so now we can talk about the actual criteria when being prescribed Duramine.
Yeah.
There isn't one.
There
There
is
is
none. There is none because I think we can all attest to, we've seen women that definitely are not obese, definitely do not fall in a BMI category of over 30, actually probably are in a what you'd call a healthy weight range, but want to lose weight for whatever reason, go to their doctor and this is then prescribed. So
I think we were talking earlier about our own experiences with that in the past, and I was prescribed Duramine years ago, and I was 54 kilos, and I went to the doctor, and it was coming out of comps, and you're mentally not 100%, and I was worried about putting on the weight, and the doctor said, well, have some Duramine. Gave me a prescription. I didn't take it. I threw the prescription away. I was shocked.
yeah,
But,
that was so easily
yeah,
done.
but it just blows my mind that doctors are doing that for women and
That's it.
damaging them.
And so then in the
immensely.
short term, Nick, those potential side effects, I don't know if they're being discussed, but, we start to look at things of actually then, because this is it's a stimulant that's increasing your central nervous system. So it's increasing the function of the nerves and the brain. So then we start to think, well, is your heart rate increasing? Blood pressure probably increases. You start to probably get things like insomnia if you didn't have that already. Effects in terms of bowel movements, constipation, nervousness, agitation. This is all potential short-term effects. So then the long-term effects, that's something that's definitely not discussed, I find, but is a very real thing. And it's really quite staggering in terms of potential mental health changes from taking a drug like this, that once again is so easily prescribed. So potential depression, psychosis. I've actually, I was looking at a paper, it was from the Australian and New Zealand Journal of Psychiatry, and there were documentations of different cases of patients that had even taken Duramine for the short term and had either come off of that and were showing signs and symptoms of that psychosis that had been brought on by that drug. Yeah. That's really scary.
It's really common. I've seen it quite often.
Yeah.
And personally, with other friends that have ended up with psychosis and said, it ruined my life. Yeah.
That's sad.
It is
really sad.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think then it's like any sort of addiction, like you were saying, Elizma, how hard, like, women are not taking this for 3 months because if they take it for a short period of time, they achieve the goal of I lost weight and I lost it really quickly and I didn't have to change anything. That's the other thing. Most of the time when this drug is prescribed, there is no anyone on that other end saying, okay, well, what's happening with your diet? Let's look at your lifestyle. Let's look at all these other factors that are so integral to your health. That's all just pushed to the side.
Yeah.
So then they're coming out of this with no dietary changes, no lifestyle changes, and an addiction to a weight loss drug.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you end up worse than what you were when you started off. Yeah?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think just to touch on I have some statistics. This was from going back nearly 2011. So we're going back nearly 10 years ago. But still at that time, which I can only imagine it's inflated since then, but the diet pill industry in Australia was estimated to be worth $208 million per annum. And 27 million of that was attributed to Dramamine sales.
Wow.
Gee, that's scary,
So this is
isn't it?
something that's not just happening to a select few people.
No. Gee.
And yet we still have an obesity problem.
Yes.
Right? So is this even working?
Is that adding up, Elizma? That's
We
exactly.
should all be super skinny, looking at those figures.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
Yeah. Wow. So I guess that sort of brings it back to the effectiveness of these diets and the longevity of these diets and
sustainability.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
And why, as you said, are we seeing so much obesity, so many women who are still struggling with their weight? If they're on all these diets and they're taking all these medications and they're supposed to be working, then what's going on?
Yeah.
Clearly they're not working, and there's reasons why they're not working.
Exactly.
We have a physiology, and our body works in a particular way, and we just need to support that instead of trying to change things around too much and disrupting it all. And that's where we see all the problems coming in.
Yeah.
So I think that the thing that all of these diets have in common, unless I miss something, is they all cut out the junk. Right? So they all cut out the processed stuff and the sugar. So that could be one reason why they do all work to some level, but I guess that would be the thing. Like if that's all you need to, if that's all you can do is cutting out sugar and processed foods, that's already going a long distance in the right direction.
Yeah. And what's the first thing we generally say to clients when we're just trying to get them back onto that healthy eating lifestyle? Let's just start with cutting out your processed foods and your sugars.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. And that's it. And I find I always, whenever I'm giving any sort of dietary recommendation, I know we're all the same. We're giving clear directions and indications of how long we expect you to say follow this. So I'm even really cautious with clients. For example, if I'm getting them to do gluten-free, I'm guiding them on why we're doing it, how long we're doing it for, what to look out for. And also too, if you're taking out something from their diet that they were previously eating, what are we adding back in?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the other, I feel like that equation is what we're getting wrong. It's almost we restrict, and we're left with nothing.
Yeah.
So we've got to find ways to continue to support our clients and women especially, that we don't feel like we're constantly looking at food and going, I can't eat that, I can't eat that, I can't eat that, what can I eat?
Yeah.
Because that alone is a huge stress. And I think, I was doing some reading and that cognitive stress that's happening even for women before they even go on a diet with around food. So even before we start to go on an Atkins diet or a Paleo, whatever that is, the stress that we have around food can have just as many detrimental effects to our health, particularly from a cognitive function point of view.
Yeah.
So that's scary too.
Yeah.
So
That is.
Yeah.
Too much, a lot of pressure
so
and
much.
very high risk. I think we've all experienced that, where you can become so obsessive about these things, right? Obsessive about scales and measurements.
It's so easy, isn't it?
Very, very easy.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time.
Yeah.
And then it becomes less about the food, particularly when we're working with clients, and more about the psychological effect and having to work on that as well, because it makes it so much tougher, because that overrides just even the diet, it's just that restricted lifestyle and that complete tunnel vision of, nothing else exists except I have to weigh that food and I can't be 3 ounces over in that, that chicken breast and things like that. And I'm like, no, that's...
Or even becoming scared of food, out and about, they can't buy food from anywhere because they, it doesn't fit into, I guess, their narrative of what they believe they should and should not be eating. All right, so that kind of wraps up diets, I guess, or weight loss diets, I should say. Hopefully that gives everyone out there a little bit more of a clearer idea of some of the pros, cons, things to look out for with certain diets. I guess my perspective, is all about balance. I kind of like, inclusion of most things, apart from sugar and processed foods and things like that. But again, everyone has different genetics and everyone feels better on different diets. But if you do anything extreme, cutting out big parts of food groups definitely should probably be on a temporary or short-term basis.
Yeah. And I guess it comes back to what we were saying in the beginning: is it sustainable for the long term?
Yeah.
So if you're eating a particular way and you're feeling great and you're healthy, and you're maintaining a healthy weight, then 100% that's perfect. If it's causing you, causing some ill health, or if some mental health around that, what you're eating, or it's not working, and we see that so often with women. They're on these diets and they said, no, I'm on this diet, or I've been told to be on this diet, it's been 6 months, I haven't lost any weight, or I've only lost minimal weight, but I can't go off the diet because I've been told to eat this way. It's like, no, it's not working for you. If it's not working, then you need to change it. You need to listen to your body. And I think that's the theme when we go through every time we talk, is listen to your body. Listen to what it's telling you. And keep it, as you said, Elizma, keep it balanced. And it's not rocket science really at the end of the day.
Good advice.
Yeah, great advice, Nick. I agree with everything you two have said.
You're just copying out because you don't have an opinion.
Yeah, guys, I'm no. I guess weight loss is such a...
All right, now you have to give us your opinion.
No, but sustainability, 100%. Even what I come to, even if I have women that are coming to me for weight loss, and that's maybe their first intention, of course, we know we need to uncover every other reason why they're not losing weight, but it's also about sustainable weight loss. So that's how I talk through in terms of diet. So if you're losing high amounts of weight very quickly, it's not going to be sustainable. It's probably not the best for your health overall. And is that something that you can maintain into the future as well? And I think that's it's about coming back to finding what works for you, what makes you feel good, and not feeling like you have to constantly be in this restriction phase. So food is meant to be, in some way, people have different views, but it's meant to be enjoyed, and we shouldn't feel stress when we think about food or what we're eating. So at the end of the day, it's there to nourish us. It's there to keep us alive at the end of the day too. So, going on heavily restricted diets, it's not the answer. So hopefully we've debunked some of those things today. The pros and cons. There are still some pros. We haven't gone completely, off on all of the diets. Hopefully this has given.
As women, we will continue to experiment with more diets.
Of course. We have to do research.
The zombie apocalypse.
Right.
That might be the next diet. I try.
I'm kind of leaning towards that. I think that could be fun.
I think it could be a bit of an
I'm
adventure.
not very good at fishing. That's the only problem. So.
I can do that.
Okay, cool. I'll come with you.
See, the problem is I'll get so hungry that I'll be like, that's it. I'm just going to die. I'm just going to lie here and die now.
Elizma, so we're going to be the ones keeping you alive.
That's
right. I have to carry her.
Exactly. Right.
All right.
Awesome.
Well,
great.
Thanks, girls. It was
that
really
was good.
fun.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank
you. Thanks, ladies. Bye.
See ya.